Hello everyone. Today we're going to dive into one of the most mysterious cases in the world, a case that still sends chills down people's spines whenever it's mentioned, the Axeman of New Orleans case. The story begins in the United States during the early 20th century, a time full of turmoil and enigma. This case is ranked among the top 10 most famous cases in the world, haunting the public with the brutality and audacity of the killer. The murderer, dubbed the Axeman of New Orleans, spread terror across an entire city. He operated at night, sneaking into people's homes while they were fast asleep. What's terrifying is that he didn't bring his own weapons. Instead, he used tools already available in the victims' homes, usually an axe, to commit his crimes. Once he found a weapon to his liking, he would creep into the bedroom and strike the victims' heads. Even more ruthless, he'd leave the murder weapon at the scene, as if taunting the police. But it didn't stop there. After carrying out a series of horrifying murders, he even sent letters challenging the authorities, fueling public outrage even further. Now let's set the scene. New Orleans, Louisiana, a city in the southern United States near the Gulf of Mexico. New Orleans is the largest city in the state, famous for its French-influenced architecture, unique cuisine, and vibrant music scene. It's considered one of the most distinctive cities in America. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans, causing its population to plummet from 790,000 to 307,000, making it the second fastest shrinking city in the US after Detroit. Our story, however, takes place in the 1910s in New Orleans. The first case occurred at dawn on May 23, 1918, a Thursday. The first victim was Andrew, 28 years old. Around 4:30 a.m., while Andrew was sound asleep, he suddenly heard cries of pain. Coming from the house next door, the home of his brother Joseph and sister-in-law Catherine. Sensing something was wrong, Andrew quickly threw on some clothes, woke up another brother, and together they rushed over to Joseph's house. Joseph's home was a single-story house located at the corner of Dorgenois Street. Joseph was an Italian-American grocer who owned both a grocery store and a bar. Here's the grocery store's location, and here's the bar's location. They weren't connected. The kitchen was over here with a door leading outside. This was the bathroom, and this was the bedroom where Joseph and his wife Catherine usually slept. Andrew and his brother arrived at the front door and knocked, but no one answered. They circled around to the back and found the door ajar, not locked. The bottom right corner of the door showed signs of being pried open. The two brothers stepped inside and headed straight to the bedroom. What they saw horrified them. Blood splattered across the floor and bed. Joseph lay on his side on the bed, his feet touching the floor, seemingly still clinging to life. Catherine, Andrew's sister-in-law, was already dead. Witnessing this gruesome scene, the brothers immediately ran to the police station to report the crime. The police arrived at the scene quickly. Unfortunately, Joseph didn't make it and died on the bed. An autopsy revealed that both victims had suffered head injuries from being struck with a blunt object. The murder weapon was identified as an axe, but the killer hadn't used the sharp blade. Instead, he used the blunt side to attack. Both victims' throats had been slashed, especially Catherine's. The cut on her throat was so deep it nearly severed her head, and her skull was almost completely shattered. At the crime scene, police found a blood-stained axe and a set of blood-soaked clothes. Nothing valuable was stolen from the house. In the neighbor's yard next door, they discovered a bloody straight razor. Aside from the pried open back door in the kitchen area, there were no other signs of forced entry elsewhere. The police theorized that the killer had entered through the back door. The axe and razor were confirmed as the murder weapons. The axe belonged to Joseph, while the razor belonged to Andrew. Based on these clues, the police formed a theory. The killer entered through the back door in the kitchen, found an axe and a straight razor, used the axe to attack Joseph and Catherine, and then slit their throats with the razor. After the murders covered in blood, the killer changed into a clean set of clothes at the scene before fleeing. Since nothing was stolen, the police ruled out robbery as a motive. The reason for the killings remained unclear. The police turned to Andrew, the owner of the straight razor. He was a barber who ran a local barber shop. A few days before the murder, Andrew had bought the razor from his shop, brought it home to sharpen it, and left it there. It was known that Andrew had recently been drafted to fight in World War I. Terrified of going to war, he'd been drinking heavily at bars in recent days. On the night of the murder, Andrew was at a bar until 1 a.m. before heading home. Then, around 4:30 a.m., he heard strange noises from his brother's house. Andrew had no alibi and couldn't clearly explain the razor's presence, so the police arrested him. However, a few days later, lacking sufficient evidence or a clear motive, they released him. During the investigation, one detective noticed a message written in chalk on a wall near the crime scene. "Mrs. Maggio will sit up tonight just like Mrs. Tony." The investigators believed Mrs. Maggio referred to Catherine. They also learned that 7 years earlier, an Italian-owned grocery store in the area had been attacked, and its owner was known to customers as Mrs. Tony. The investigators thought this case might be linked to that earlier incident, but since it happened years ago and the case files were incomplete, the lead went cold. A month after the first case, the second attack occurred. At 7 a.m., a truck driver delivering goods to a grocery store arrived as usual. When he got there, the store was still closed, though it typically opened by that hour. Knowing the owner lived behind the store, the driver went to the back door to check. He found it unlocked and stepped inside. To his horror, he discovered a man and a woman lying in a pool of blood. Their heads were still bleeding, but they seemed to be faintly breathing. The driver immediately ran to the police station to report. Tired police arrived at the scene and rushed the two victims to the hospital. Examination showed the man had been struck with an axe on his right temple, fracturing his skull, but it wasn't life-threatening. The woman had been hit on her left arm and was unconscious. Because the killer used the blunt side of the axe, neither victim died on the spot. At the crime scene, police found a pried-off back door panel discarded nearby. In the bathroom, there was a blood-stained axe. They also found a wallet inside and a letter written in German, Russian, and an unknown language. Nothing valuable was stolen. Apart from the pried open door, there were no other signs of forced entry. The man was Louis, 60, an Italian immigrant, and the woman was Anna, his mistress. The police noted striking similarities to the previous case. Both sets of victims were attacked with an axe. The back door panels were pried open, and the two crime scenes were just 3.7 miles apart. This led the police to believe the same person might be behind both attacks. They learned that Louis had recently argued with a man named Oben, a 41-year-old African-American who had worked at Louis's grocery store. A week before the attack, Oben had quarreled with Louis and then quit. The police tracked down Oben. With no clear alibi, he was arrested, but they found no evidence linking him to the crime, so he was released a few days later. Louis and Anna, after being taken to the hospital, received proper medical care and gradually regained consciousness. Louis told police that a man had broken into their home that night and attacked them, but it was too dark to see his face. Anna, more severely injured, claimed the attacker was a white man holding an axe. She also suggested Louis might be a German spy, as police had found a letter in multiple languages in their home, raising suspicions about his identity. The police investigated Louis's recent contacts and activities, but found no evidence to support this. The case drew intense local media attention. Reporters interviewed Anna, who answered all questions candidly, openly admitting she was Louis's mistress and expressing frustration with the police. Some speculated she might have mental health issues. 2 months after the attack, Anna died in the hospital during surgery due to her severe injuries. However, days before her death, she contacted the police and claimed Louis, her lover, was the one who attacked her. Based on this statement, The police arrested Louis and charged him with murder. At the initial trial, Louis was sentenced to life in prison, but he insisted he was innocent and appealed the verdict. At the appeals hearing, the court noted that Louis was also a victim of the attack, with a serious head injury that could have killed him without timely medical intervention. If Louis were the killer, he would have had to attack himself with the axe after attacking Anna, an implausible theory. Thus, Louis was declared not guilty and released. With no further leads, the case faded into mystery. 2 months after the second case, a third attack occurred. The victim was another woman named Anna, full name Anna Schneider, 28 years old and 8 months pregnant. That night, Anna was resting at home alone while her husband worked late. The hot weather kept her tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Suddenly, she heard a strange noise outside. Before she could check it, a tall, dark figure burst into her bedroom and struck her face with something hard. Anna passed out instantly. At 10:05 p.m., her husband returned home and found her lying in a pool of blood. Fortunately, she still showed signs of life and was rushed to the hospital. Examination revealed a deep scalp wound, serious but not life-threatening. Police searched the scene. Only $6 in cash was missing. Other valuables remained untouched. They found a blood-stained lamp at the scene. Like the previous cases, a back door panel had been pried open. 2 days later, with medical care, Anna woke up and gave birth to a baby girl. She told police she only remembered the attacker as a tall man. Other details escaped her. This case once again stirred public panic. Locals were terrified, convinced it was the same killer, and began calling him the Axeman of New Orleans. 5 days after the third case, a fourth attack took place. That evening, the New Orleans Police Department received a call reporting an attack on a family. Police rushed to the scene and found a man lying on a bed, severely injured in the head but still faintly breathing. He was taken for emergency care but died from his wounds. The victim was identified as Joseph Romano, 31, another Italian-American grocer. The police examined the scene. As in prior cases, a back door panel had been pried off and a blood-stained axe was found in the backyard. Nothing was stolen. Besides, the victim. 2 other women were in the house, Pauline, 15, who had called the police, and her sister Mary, both nieces of the victim, living in an adjacent room. Pauline said that night she and her sister were woken by a loud noise. They went to check and, opening their bedroom door, saw a tall man in a dark suit and soft hat standing in the living room. The dim light kept his face hidden. He saw Pauline, hesitated briefly, then fled the house. His footsteps were so quiet, almost silent, as if he wore rubber-soled shoes. After the case hit the news, locals flooded the police with tips. Some reported finding a bloody axe in their backyard. Others saw a man climbing a neighbor's fence or hiding under a car in their yard. Similar reports poured in, and police investigated each one, but nothing panned out. Some theorized the killer might have a personality disorder, normally a law-abiding citizen, but occasionally overtaken by an uncontrollable urge to kill. This could explain why he evaded capture. As more attacks occurred, New Orleans residents grew increasingly paranoid, fearing the Axeman would target them next. The city was gripped by fear, and people rushed to buy guns and ammunition for self-defense. For a while after, no similar attacks happened in New Orleans, giving residents 7 months of peace. But then, on Monday night, March 10, 1919, the 5th case struck. A merchant named Isidore was resting at home when he heard screams from the house across the street, a grocery store run by an Italian family. The owner was Charles Cortimiglia, his wife Rosie, and their 2-year-old daughter. Being close to the family, Isidore ran over to check. The front door was locked, so he circled to the back and found a pried-off door panel, the door slightly ajar. Painful moans came from inside. Stepping in, Isidore saw Charles lying motionless on the floor covered in blood. Rosie was slumped at the bedroom door, clutching their blood-soaked 2-year-old daughter. Rosie's head was badly injured, too. Panicked, Isidore ran out to alert the police. Officers arrived and took all three to the hospital. Miraculously, Charles and Rosie survived their severe injuries, but their toddler didn't make it. Police inspected the scene. As before, nothing was stolen, and a bloody axe was found in the hallway near the back door. They concluded this was another Axeman attack. 2 days later, Charles was discharged and told police the attacker was a stranger whose face he couldn't see before being struck. But Rosie insisted she clearly remembered the attacker. It was Isidore, the man who reported the crime. She also claimed Isidore's son, Frank, was an accomplice, signing a sworn statement to back her story. Charles, however, denied his wife's account, insisting it was a stranger, not Isidore. Suspect Isidore, 69, was a grocer with arthritis and poor health. His son Frank, 18, was 6 feet tall and weighed about 198 pounds, too large to fit through the small gap in the back door panel. Isidore and Charles's family had been on good terms, though both ran competing grocery stores across the street from each other. A trade dispute had led Isidore to sue Charles, souring their relationship. Despite similarities to the Axeman's other crimes, Rosie's testimony led police to disconnect this case from the Axeman. They arrested Isidore and Frank, charging them with first-degree murder based on Rosie's crucial statement. Both were convicted. Isidore got life in prison, Frank the death penalty. They appealed. Rosie and Charles later divorced amid post-case tensions. A year later, Rosie recanted, admitting she'd falsely accused Isidore and Frank out of jealousy and spite. The real attacker that night, she said, was a stranger. Soon after, Isidore and Frank were freed. 3 days after the attack, the local Times-Picayune newspaper received a letter allegedly from the Axeman. It read, "From hell, March 13th, 1919, dear mortals. Your past has failed to catch me, and your future will too. You've never seen me because I am invisible, like the sky cloaking the earth. I am not human, but a spirit, a demon from the hottest depths of hell. I am the Axeman, as the people of New Orleans and your foolish police call me. When I see fit, I'll come and claim more victims. Only I know who they'll be. No one can stop me but my own blood. I'll leave no clues, just the axe, stained with the blood and brains of those I've sent to hell to keep me company. Tell the police to beware, don't anger me. Of course, I'm reasonable. I'm not upset about their past investigations. Honestly, they're too dim-witted. They've not only mocked me, but the great King Satan and others too. They'd be wise not to hunt me." Silence beats facing the Axeman's wrath. I shouldn't need to warn them. I'm sure the police will keep dodging me as they always have. They're clever at avoiding danger. The people of New Orleans see me as the most fearsome killer, and I am. But I could be worse if I chose. I could visit your city every night, slay anyone, even your finest citizens, for I'm close kin to the angel of death. Now precisely, next Tuesday night at 12:15 a.m., I'll pass through New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, here's a small tip. Listen closely. I love jazz music. In the name of all hell's demons, I declare that any home playing jazz that night will be safe. The more jazz bands, the better. One thing's certain, those who don't play jazz that Tuesday will taste my axe. Signed, the Axeman. In the letter, the Axeman called himself a demon from hell and vowed to kill anyone not playing jazz after 12:15 a.m. on March 19th. The letter's contents were immediately published, throwing New Orleans into chaos. People feared they'd be his next victims with just a week to go. The police went on high alert, patrolling the city in hopes of catching him. On March 18th, 1919, that night, wealthy families hired jazz bands to perform at home. Jazz music echoed from houses citywide. Poorer folks who couldn't afford instruments flocked to bars playing jazz. Every bar was packed with people crowding in to listen. When 12:15 passed, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The night went by, and the city endured a terrifying ordeal. The Axeman kept his word. No one was attacked that night. After this event, the Axeman seemed to vanish for months, leaving no trace. New Orleans residents slowly returned to normal life. But not long after, he reappeared. On Sunday night, August 10, 1919, the sixth case struck. A grocer named Steve Boker was sleeping soundly when odd noises outside woke him. A dark figure stood by his bed and hit him hard on the head. Caught off guard by Steve waking up, the attacker fled. Steve tried to chase him, but passed out from the blow near a neighbor's door. Police searched Steve's house and found a pried-off back door panel, the killer's entry point. Nothing was stolen. They suspected another Axeman attack. Severely injured, Steve couldn't recall much or describe the attacker's face. A month after Steve's case, a 19-year-old woman named Sarah Lauman was attacked. She suffered serious head injuries and lost several teeth, but survived thanks to the doctor's efforts. Police examined her home. This time, the back door wasn't pried open, but a window was wide open. They guessed the killer entered there. A bloody axe was found on the lawn outside. Some doubted this was the Axeman, suggesting another culprit. A month after Sarah's attack, at 1 a.m., a woman named Esther was fast asleep when a loud noise jolted her awake. Married with 6 kids, Esther lived apart from her husband, Mike, to care for them. Hearing the sound, she rushed out of her bedroom and saw 2 suspicious men fleeing. She ran to Mike's room and found blood everywhere. Mike lay on the bed, gravely injured in the head, covered in blood. Esther raced to the police station to report it. Police arrived fast. Mike had been struck 18 times in the head with a metal chair leg. He was taken to the hospital but died from his injuries. After the case, a photo circulated showing a man in a suit, soft hat, and holding an axe entering Mike's house, though its authenticity and origin remain questioned. After this, the Axeman vanished completely, never to return. Many have analyzed this with serial killers like him. It's rare for them to stop. His halt might mean he was caught for another crime or moved elsewhere. His true identity remains unknown. Numerous theories abound. Most of the Axeman's victims were Italian-American grocers, leading some to link him to the mafia. In the late 19th century, New Orleans needed cheap labor, drawing many Italians, including Sicilians from southern Italy. Many used their savings to open grocery stores there. By 1900, Sicilians ran numerous New Orleans groceries. These immigrants often faced racial discrimination in the South. Distrusting local police, they handled issues themselves, sparking shootings and stabbings. The Italian mafia, rooted in Sicily, extorted merchants, pay up or face threats. Some theorize mafia members continued crimes after immigrating. During the investigation, police pinpointed a key suspect, Joseph Mumfre. In the Axeman's final case, the victim saw 2 suspects. After Mike was killed, his wife Esther remarried and moved. Soon after, her new husband vanished mysteriously. Joseph Mumfre allegedly visited Esther, extorting $500 and jewelry, threatening to kill her like her husband if she refused. Both had guns. Threatened, Esther shot Mumfre dead. She later told police one of the 2 men she saw the night Mike died was Mumfre. Esther was freed, deemed acting in self-defense. Joseph Mumfre had a long rap sheet, leading a gang extorting Italian immigrants. Though jailed multiple times, he was free when the Axeman was active and rearrested when the killing stopped, though police never confirmed this link. While the Axeman struck, similar crimes hit other parts of Louisiana. Though the methods matched, it's unclear if they were his work or copycats. With evidence poorly preserved, the Axeman's true identity remains an unsolved mystery. All we know is he loved breaking into homes at night, grabbing an axe lying around, and silently slipping into victims' bedrooms. The Axeman of New Orleans left behind a trail of unanswered questions and a legacy of terror for an entire city. Was he truly a demon from hell as he claimed, or just a cold-blooded killer hiding as an ordinary man? Some say he had a personality disorder driven by uncontrollable murder urges. Others believe he was a mafia member settling scores or vying for power. There's even a theory he wasn't one person but a group. Each idea has its merits and flaws, making the case ever more baffling. That's it for today's video. See you in the next one. Goodbye.